Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from our UPSC Civil Services examination perspective. Now today let us discuss the important news which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 10th March 2021. The news to be discussed has been displayed on your screen and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from our UPSC Civil Services examination perspective. Now let's take up the first news appearing on page number 1. The news says, over 72% rise in UAPA cases registered in 2019 over 2015. So it means that since 2015, there has been a 72% rise in the cases registered under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. It says that 1948 persons were arrested in 1226 cases that year. And further, the news also highlights that the maximum cases under UAPA were registered in Manipur, followed by Tamil Nadu, then followed by Jammu and Kashmir. So it is in this regard, let us understand certain basic facts with respect to our prelims examination, as questions pertaining to the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 can be asked, also because an amendment was made in this act in the year 2019, which added another schedule to this particular act. That is, the amendment added 4th schedule to the UAPA Act, which provides for naming individuals as terrorists. So in this regard, this news becomes important primarily from your prelims perspective. So from our prelims perspective, this topic gets covered under Indian polity and governance and also under rights issues. Whereas in our mains, this topic gets covered under GS paper 2 and under GS paper 3. Now regarding GS paper 2, with respect to important features of the Indian Constitution, especially with respect to Article 19 of the Indian Constitution, and also regarding the functions and responsibilities of the Union and states. Further, under GS paper 3, this topic gets covered under linkages between development and spread of extremism, role of external state and non-state actors in creating challenges to internal security, and also challenges to internal security through communication networks. Now here the point to be understood is that the enactment of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967 must be seen with the slow curtailment of freedom of speech and expression under Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. Further, India's defeat in Sino-Indian War, that is war with China along Ladakh, also prompted certain amendments in Article 19. And also the fact that DMK proposed secession in their election manifesto against India. So based on these developments, certain restrictions were included or added in Article 19 of the Indian Constitution, which provides for freedom of speech and expression. So from our prelims perspective, we must know the different amendments which took place in Article 19, since Article 19 has become a contention of debate of late because of increasing cases under sedition and also under UAPA. So the Constitution First Amendment Act added the term reasonable before restrictions in Article 19 Clause 2 and also added public order as ground to restrict fundamental right. Further, under Constitution 16th Amendment Act, reasonable restrictions in the interest of sovereignty and integrity of India was also added to Article 19 too. Now this was added based on India's defeat in Indo-Sino War in China in 1961 and also the fact that DMK proposed secession in their election manifesto. Further, the Constitution 44th Amendment Act 1978 removed Article 19(1)(f), which provided the fundamental right to hold, acquire and dispose property by citizens of India. And the Constitution 97th Amendment Act added the term cooperative societies in Article 19(1)(c). So these can be said to be some of the major amendments made in Article 19. So after understanding various amendments introduced in Article 19, this article mentions that maximum cases under UAPA were registered in Manipur, followed by Tamil Nadu, followed by Jammu and Kashmir, Jharkhand and Assam. So we see that most of these states, namely Manipur, Jharkhand and Assam, are around the eastern part of the country. So we see greater number of internal security challenges in the eastern part of the country, especially in the northeast area around Assam and Manipur. And it is in this behalf GS paper 3 comes into picture, especially with respect to role of external state and non-state actors in creating challenges to internal security. Now, after understanding about various amendments under Article 19, let's go through the important highlights of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967. So, this act was legislated to provide more effective prevention of certain unlawful activities of individuals and associations and for dealing with terrorist activities. Now, this aspect was added by 2004 amendment made to this particular act. Now, this act also provides for definition of certain important terms such as association, which means any combination or body of individuals, secession of a part of territory of India, which includes admission of the claim of any foreign country to any such part. Secession of a part of territory of India from the Union includes the assertion of any claim to determine whether such part will remain a part of territory of India. So we see that secession of a part of territory of India has been defined under the UAPA Act. Further, it also provides for terrorist act, terrorist gang and terrorist organization. Now it says that the meaning has been assigned to it in section 15 and the expression terrorism and terrorist shall be construed accordingly. So basically section 15 of this act defines terrorist act. Now terrorist gang means any association other than terrorist organization, whether systematic or otherwise, which is concerned with or involved in terrorist act. So we see that the term terrorist act becomes important in the context of UAPA, especially with respect to the aspect of secession of a part of territory of India. Further, terrorist organization means an organization listed in the schedule or an organization operating under the same name as an organization so listed. So terrorist organization means any organization which has been listed in first schedule of this particular act. Further, let us also understand about the term terrorist act and also about the term unlawful activities. Now the term terrorist act says that whoever does any act with an intent to threaten or likely to threaten. So any act which is done with an intention to threaten or likely to threaten the unity, integrity, security, economic security or sovereignty of India, or with an intent to strike terror or likely to strike terror in the people or any section of the people in India or in any foreign country. So another aspect highlighted is to striking terror in the minds of the people. It further says that a terrorist act includes an act which constitutes an offense within the scope of and as defined in any of the treaties specified in second schedule. So, if any act which has been constituted or considered as an offense under any of the treaty which is specified in second schedule to the UAPA, then such act shall also be considered as a terrorist act as per UAPA Act. And regarding punishment for terrorist act, it says that whoever commits a terrorist act shall, if such act has resulted in the death of any person, shall be punishable with death or imprisonment for life and shall also be liable to fine. So if any of such terrorist act has resulted in the death of any person, either citizen of India or any foreign persons, then shall be punishable with death or imprisonment for life and shall also be liable for fine. It further says that in any other case, such person committing terrorist act shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 5 years but which may extend to imprisonment for life and shall also be liable to fine. So the act clearly highlights about punishment for terrorist act and also defines terrorist act under UAPA. Now since the act has mentioned about second schedule, hence it is in this regard we must know the constituents of different schedule provided under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967. So the first schedule provides for list of terrorist organization. Second schedule provides for international conventions and protocols to curb and suppress terrorism. Third schedule provides for security features to define high quality counterfeit Indian currency notes, which includes watermark, latent image and see-through registration in currency notes. And the very recently added fourth schedule, which provides name of individuals as terrorist, and their schedule was added by the 2019 amendment made in the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967. Now, moving further to unlawful activity, as per the UAPA Act, it includes both individual and association. So, according to the Act, it says that any action taken by an individual or association to bring about cession of part of territory of India, that is, any group or organization giving up the territory of India to another organization or another non-state actor or to any other country. Next, it mentions about secession of part of territory of India from Indian Union, that is breaking Indian Union to form new country, or any action taken by an individual or association which incites an individual or association to disrupt sovereignty or territorial integrity of India or to cause disaffection against India. So all these activities can be termed as unlawful activities within the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Now in this discussion, let us also go through some of the changes which were introduced through the 2019 amendment in the UAPA Act. Now as already mentioned that the term individual terrorist was added in the 4th schedule. So this aspect was also added in chapter 6 of the UAPA Act, where earlier it was mentioned terrorist organization and the amendment changed this to terrorist organization and individuals. Similarly, section 36 of the Act provided for denotification of terrorist organization. So the 2019 amendment added individual to denotification of terrorist organization. And as already mentioned, that 4th schedule was added in the UAPA Act, which provides names of individual terrorists. Now regarding power of investigation, the 2019 amendment provides for investigation to be conducted by an officer of the National Investigative Agency with prior approval of the Director General of National Investigation Agency. Further, section 43 of the Act was also amended. Earlier, it provided for officers competent to investigate offences. So the 2019 amendment provides investigative powers to National Investigative Agency to investigate cases to such officers below the rank of inspector. And in the 2nd schedule, another treaty was added, namely the International Convention for Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism. So these were some of the amendments which were made in the UAPA Act through the 2019 amendment. Thus this news becomes important primarily from your prelims perspective, as questions associated with UAPA recent amendments and also constitutional amendment under Article 19 can be asked in your upcoming prelims examination. With this, let's move to the next article of discussion. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 9. It says Cyber Volunteer Program rolled out. Ministry of Home Affairs informs Lok Sabha. It will focus on hygiene promotion and flag unlawful content. So according to this news, Ministry of Home Affairs has informed the Lok Sabha about the Cybercrime Grievance portal. So according to this news, the Ministry of Home Affairs has informed the Lok Sabha about formation of Cybercrime Grievance portal, through which the government aims to raise a group of cybercrime volunteers to flag unlawful content on the internet. Now regarding volunteers, there are 3 types of volunteers who can register on Cybercrime Grievance portal. So citizens can register themselves as one of these 3 cyber volunteers. First, cyber volunteer unlawful content flagger, cyber awareness promoter, and as cyber expert. So the whole idea of Ministry of Home Affairs is to empower citizens so that they can help law enforcement agencies in identifying, reporting, and removing illegal or unlawful content from the internet. So accordingly, the Ministry of Home Affairs has established the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, as this center will act as a nodal point at national level in fight against cybercrime. Further, the center also aims to provide a platform to deal with cybercrimes in a coordinated and comprehensive manner. Now, one of the important objectives of Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center is to create an ecosystem that brings together people from academia, industry, people from the public and government services in prevention, detention, investigation, and prosecution of cyber crimes. So accordingly, Good Samaritans can register as cybercrime volunteers in the role of unlawful content flaggers, cyber awareness promoter, and also cyber expert. Now, according to Ministry of Home Affairs, unlawful online content can be any content which violates any law which is in force in India, and includes any content on the internet which is against defense of India, which is against sovereignty and integrity of India, which is against security of the state, which promotes child sex abuse materials, any content against friendly relations with foreign states, any content aimed at disturbing public order and disturbing communal harmony. So these can be said to be unlawful content present online as per Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, various groups and NGOs have highlighted certain concerns with respect to this step of Ministry of Home Affairs. First is creation of a culture of surveillance, as according to these organizations, it will increase social distrust in the society as this step will lead to citizens reporting against other citizens. Further, through this activity, central government can target such associations or organizations who are against government policies and can target such online content which might be against government policies but cannot be termed as seditious. Another concern highlighted here is that there is no prior verification for volunteers who will be registering themselves as unlawful content flagger. Thus, these can be said to be some of the concerns which have been highlighted against this step of the central government, which aims to register citizens as cyber volunteer to flag unlawful content present on the internet. So this news becomes important primarily from the prelims perspective as it gets covered under current events of national importance and also under Indian polity and governance, especially public policy, and in the mains gets covered under GS paper 2, especially with respect to aspects of governance, transparency and accountability, and also under GS paper 3, especially with respect to challenges to internal security through communication networks and role of media and social networking sites in internal security challenges. So with this discussion, let's move to the next article. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 6. It says, plowing a new furrow in the agri-regulatory system. Change is needed as Indian farmers face constraints and as the world agriculture will now rely on middle income countries. Now this particular article highlights about the recent report published by World Bank Group titled Enabling the Business of Agriculture 2019. Now just like the ease of doing business, this report also mentions about the countries where ease of agriculture is better, and here India has been ranked at 49th position as compared to 101 countries. So in this regard, this report examines whether the government designed regulation and processes either facilitates or hinders agricultural activities for domestic farmers. Further, the report also identifies and monitors regulations and policies which affects the livelihood of farmers. So basically this report highlights about the ease of doing agriculture in a particular country. Now one aspect of the report, especially regarding India, highlighted that India made tractor registration less affordable for farmers by considerably increasing the official tractor registration fees in 2016. Now this aspect has been mentioned in the report. So it is in this regard, let us go through the important highlights of this report and also what the report mentions about India. Now this report has used 8 indicators, namely supplying seed, second registering fertilizer, third with respect to securing water, fourth regarding registering of machinery, fifth regarding sustaining livestock, sixth regarding protection of plant health, seventh with respect to trading of food, and eighth with respect to access to finance. Now apart from these 8 indicators, the report also mentions about examples of additional dimensions which are covered, which includes breeder rights and licensing to third parties, provisions on post-control testing of seeds, fertilizer import and quality control requirements, machinery standards and import procedures, water abstraction permits, and regulation of producer organizations. So a question in your prelims can be asked with respect to the indicators used by enabling the business of agriculture 2019 report. However, apart from this fact, there are certain aspects which is not measured, such as natural factors which affect the productivity of farmers, such as the type of soil, average temperatures, the precipitation levels, length of growing season, or the risk of droughts or floods. So these are the aspects which are not measured by this particular report. And as already mentioned, that this report covers 101 countries across all regions. Now, why is this report significant? Because it provides a snapshot or a glance of key aspects to be considered by policymakers for boosting farmers' productivity. So, basically, the report helps different governments in framing suitable policies for farmers. Now, regarding highlights of this report, the top performers according to the reports are France, Croatia, and the Czech Republic. Whereas Turkey is the top performing country among emerging groups of 20 countries, followed by Argentina, Brazil, and the Russian Federation, Mexico, and China. Now, regarding India's performance, we have already said that India has been ranked at 49 on the EBA aggregate score. And among emerging groups of 20 countries, India has the second least favorable regulatory environment for farming activities after South Africa. Now, out of the 8 indicators, India performs badly in 5 indicators, especially in registering fertilizer and machinery, securing water, sustaining livestock, and protecting plant health indicators. Whereas India has better performances in 3 indicators, namely that of supplying seed, trading food, and indicators with respect to accessing finance. So it is in this regard this article highlights about the importance of enabling business of agriculture in India. This article says that the small and marginal farmers in India account for 83% of the farmers who hold almost around 48% of the agricultural land. So, government must cater to this large section of small and marginal farmers in India. Further, the article says that these farmers face number of constraints with respect to access to various inputs such as access to seeds, fertilizers, water, machinery, finances, etc. The article further says that the overall productivity of smaller land holdings is also decreasing or is also lower. So the government must cater to the needs of these small and marginal farmers. Now, another concern highlighted in this article is with respect to exploitation of these small and marginal farmers by middlemen and traders, which further leads to lower price realization for these small farmers. So, this article says that as pointed out by the Committee on Doubling Farmers' Income, the government must adopt three-pronged strategy. First, to reduce input cost for these farmers, enhance productivity for the crop, and provide higher price realization for the farmers. So, the article concludes by saying that regarding all these constraints which are faced by marginal farmers and small farmers in India, this report of World Bank should act as a reference point for the government to understand the lacuna or the gap in facilitating agriculture and accordingly address the constraints and challenges faced by small and marginal farmers in India. Now, this topic becomes important primarily from the perspective of your prelims examination, and this gets covered under economic and social development. Whereas in your mains, this topic gets covered under GS paper 3, especially with respect to issues pertaining to Indian economy and major cropping patterns in various parts of the country, transport and marketing of agricultural produce, and issues and related constraints with respect to agricultural produce and e-technology in the aid of farmers. Now, the next news to be discussed appears on page number 1. It says, Panel flags center's meagre pensions. And this meagre pension has been highlighted under the National Social Assistance Program. So, the demand of the panel is to increase pensions under National Social Assistance Programs for poor senior citizens, for widows, and also for disabled people. Now, National Social Assistance Program is a social security and welfare program which was introduced by the Government of India in the year 1995. And the aim of the program is to provide support to aged persons, widows, disabled persons, and bereaved families on death of primary breadwinner belonging to below poverty line households. So, a Parliamentary Standing Committee on Rural Development has urged the centre to increase the meagre pension provided to poor citizens, widows, and disabled people under National Social Assistance Program. So, from our prelims perspective, National Social Assistance Program becomes very important. So, in this regard, let's go through some of the important highlights of this program. Now, first and foremost, it is a welfare program and it is being administered by Ministry of Rural Development. Now, this program is implemented both in rural and urban areas. Now, the government initiated this program in 1995 as a step towards fulfillment of directive principles of state policy, especially under Article 41 of the Indian Constitution. So, according to Article 41, it directs the state to provide public assistance to its citizens in case of unemployment, old age, sickness and disablement, and in other cases of undeserved want within the limit of a state's economic capacity and development. Further, it says that these programs were aimed to ensure minimum national standards in addition to the benefits that states were then providing or would provide in the future. Another important aspect is that annual verification and social audit has been introduced under National Social Assistance Program. Now, regarding schemes under the National Social Assistance Program, there are five schemes, namely, first, the Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, second, Indira Gandhi National Widow Pension Scheme, third, Indira Gandhi National Disability Pension Scheme, fourth, National Family Benefit Scheme, and fifth, Annapurna Scheme. Now, under Annapurna Scheme, 10 kg of food grains per month for senior citizens who are not receiving any pension are provided. Now, the Parliamentary Committee of Rural Development has highlighted that the pensions provided under these schemes are very less, as pensions ranges between mere 200 to 500, whereas for widow pension scheme it ranges from 300 to 500. Regarding disability pension schemes, rupees 300 per month. Regarding family benefits, a family receives mere 20,000 upon the death of a breadwinner aged between 18 to 59 in BPL households. So, the Parliamentary Committee on Rural Development has urged the central government to increase these pensions under National Social Assistance Program. Now, you must go through this topic from your prelims perspective primarily, and in this regard, this topic gets covered under economic and social development and also poverty, inclusion, demographics, and social sector initiatives. Whereas in your mains, this topic gets covered under GS paper 2, especially regarding welfare schemes for the vulnerable sections of the population by center and issues relating to poverty and hunger. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 7. It says, in need of full-time heads. Many central forces are functioning without regular chiefs, which could impact their efficiency. So this article highlights that the following institutions' chief or head are not appointed so far by the government. These include CRPF, CPI, BSF, Narcotics Control Bureau, and National Security Guard. Now, the problem in not appointing a head of these important institutions is that they play a very important and vital role in maintaining internal security. So, it's important for these organizations or institutions to have a head in order to have a particular policy directive. Next, without a head, it impacts the morale and efficiency of these forces, and it also impacts the decision making, as the officer in charge who is there will not take important or major policy decisions, and those matters which are important for national security will keep on pending till the next officer or till the next head is appointed. So the question remains as to what can be done in such circumstances. This article highlights a number of measures. These measures are: first, the government must announce appointment of a head 3 months in advance of the person retiring or leaving the job. Next, officers appointed must have a minimum tenure of 2 years or till the age of retirement, whichever is later. Next, officers considered for appointment must be among those who have served in the organization. Next, the article says that the government must keep ready a panel of officers who are cleared by UPSC and Information Bureau for appointment in case of vacancies. So these are some of the steps which has been highlighted in this article with respect to what can be done in case of a pending vacancy in these important organizations which takes important decisions pertaining to national security. Now, in the previous DNS, we discussed about the Central Armed Police Forces. So in this regard, let's revise the important forces under Central Armed Police Forces. So in this regard, let us go through some of the important functions of all these members of CAPF. So the first is Central Reserve Police Force. It says that it is the largest of the Central Armed Police, and its primary role lies in assisting the state as well as union territories in police operations to maintain law and order and also counter insurgency. Further, the Border Security Force guards the Indo-Pakistan as well as Indo-Bangladesh borders and is also deployed both on international border as well as at the LOC. Next is CISF, that is Central Industrial Security Force, and it provides security to various public sector undertakings and also other critical infrastructure installations in the country, such as major airports across the country, railway stations across the country, and also provides security during elections and other internal security duties, and also provides VVIP protection to certain members. Moving further, let's talk about Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Now, as you can see that it is deployed to guard duties on the Indo-China border, not only in Ladakh region but also in Arunachal Pradesh. And they guard Indo-China border from Karakoram Pass in Ladakh to Deephu Pass in the Arunachal Pradesh area. Now, if you see in this map, this is where Karakoram Pass is located. And with respect to Deephu Pass, this is where Deephu Pass is located in Arunachal Pradesh. So both these map as well as the location of Karakoram Pass as well as Deephu Pass becomes important from the perspective of prelims examination in geography. Next, let's talk about Sashastra Seema Bal. Now, Sashastra Seema Bal guards the Indo-Nepal as well as Indo-Bhutan borders. So we see a clear distinction with respect to guarding of borders of different countries. With respect to Indo-China border, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police guards the Indo-China border. Regarding Indo-Nepal and Indo-Bhutan borders, it is guarded by Sashastra Seema Bal, that is SSB. Whereas with respect to India-Pakistan and Indo-Bangladesh borders, it is guarded by the Border Security Force. So please remember this difference with respect to your prelims examination. And lastly, Assam Rifles. Now with respect to Assam Rifle, it highlights that it is the oldest paramilitary force of India. And the aspect of internal security is under the control of the Indian Army. So here the point to be understood is that the operational control with respect to Assam Rifles is with the Ministry of Defence. Whereas generally all these CAPFs functions under Ministry of Home Affairs. So this again becomes an important point from the perspective of prelims examination. So overall, Assam Rifles not only helps to maintain internal security but also conduct counter-insurgency and border security operations. It provides aid to civilians in times of emergency and also provides for communication, medical assistance as well as education in remote areas. So Assam Rifles not only conduct counter-insurgency operations but also provide for border security operations and also provide aid to civilians in times of emergency. So these can be said to be some of the important functions with respect to different CAPFs. The point to be understood here is that all these CAPFs are under MHA. However, only with respect to Assam Rifles, the operational control of Assam Rifles lies with the Ministry of Defence. Now the aspects of Central Armed Police Forces gets covered under governance in your preliminary examination, and in the mains examination gets covered under GS paper 3, especially with respect to the aspect of security. So with this, let's take up the question for the day. Now based on our discussion, the question for the day is, which of the following schemes are part of National Social Assistance Program? First, Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme. Second, Indira Gandhi National Widow Pension Scheme. Third, MG Narega. Fourth, Indira Gandhi National Disability Pension Scheme. And fifth, Annapurna. So the question is, select the correct answer using the code given below. A, 2, 3 and 4 only. B, 1, 2, 4 and 5 only. C, 1, 2, 3 and 5 only. And D, 2, 3, 4 and 5 only. Now coming to the answer of yesterday. The question was, consider the following statements. First, the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act 2019 constituted the National Commission for Backward Classes under Article 338B. No, this statement is incorrect as the National Commission for Backward Classes was established under Constitution 102nd Amendment Act, whereas the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act provided for 10% reservation to the economically weaker sections of the society under Article 15 Clause 6 and 16 Clause 6. Second, the Supreme Court in Indira Swani judgment provided for the principle of creamy layer among other backward classes. Yes, this is correct. So the question was, which of the statements given above is correct? So here the correct answer becomes 2 only. So with this we come to an end to our today's discussion. Thank you.